Okay, what is up, Internet? Webflowers, Finsweet family, what's up? Episode number 33 here today. We're going to talk all about the anatomy of a five-figure website. And so we're going to go up and down the sales process, what goes in the website, what clients expect, and how to manage those expectations. We've talked about some of this, but we're going to give you new information. We're also going to reference old episodes and just kind of walk all over this topic. We'll answer your questions like we typically do and just spend the next hour just talking about how to sell high five-figure websites. So anyway, before we get too far into this thing, let's effing grow. Man, I got those butterflies like we're in early streams again. I don't know if it's because I'm like in a new environment or what. I don't know. Just what's up, Joe?
Every day is exciting for me. I get the butterflies every single stream.
Yeah. It's like right as you hit that live, you're just like, oh, okay, here we go.
It's exciting. It's exciting, yeah.
Okay.
And this is a good one. We haven't actually talked about this. We've been asked about this a lot. It finally made its way up to the voting, to the top spot, and now we're going to talk about it. Yeah. Five-figure websites. We're going to break them down, and we're going to do it in a different way. You may be expecting us to look at examples here and show visuals. We have a very unique and cool take on this, so really, really pumped about this episode.
Nice. And we'll say hey real quick to Arianto, Christopher Coleman's in the house, Ezekiel, what's up? Gabe Perez, Iku is here, Jay Poucher, Jeremy, Magdalena, what's up? Matt, Penny, Rohan, Steven, Vimalan. Shout out to V. They did their own little live stream earlier today, so they had a cool little conversation about some of the perils of being a beginning Webflower. So V, feel free to share a link in the comments to that. And I'm seeing a couple questions here. Matt's asking, where is Rymar today? We're still in Playa del Carmen. So this week is Playa del Carmen. Next week is a big special event, right? We're going to do a big Ask Me Anything. We're going to have like 13, 14 of the Finsweet folks together here in Mexico, in Merida. And so we're going to be in a co-working space. Hopefully internet and everything will be super stable, but we're going to have a very interactive Ask Me Anything with the whole team. So Joe will be there. I'll be there. Our top designers will be there. Our lead technical people will be there. Some of our content team will be there. And so like, it's going to be cool. We're going to just get real interactive. We'll talk a little bit about what comes next. We have some special content that we're working and preparing. That's part of this whole travel thing that's happening. And so those plans are changing on the fly, especially with No Code Conf now being virtual only. So we're kind of adapting to what we're going to do with that plan. We had big plans to go out to San Francisco. So anyway, just stay tuned for updates on what we're doing. Will there be live streams from Mexico? Hey, we're in Mexico right now, actually. So I am in Mexico at the moment. If you've not been following along, I've got this case that's just a rolling studio, and I'll be showcasing that. We'll do a full walkthrough. We have a videographer meeting us, so that's why next week's going to be crazy. We're going to have so much going on next week. Be sure to tell a friend. Let's see if we can blow that episode out of the water. So any thoughts, Joe? Did I miss anything there about next week or what we're planning content-wise?
No, it's going to be great. That's really all I can say. Don't miss it. You'll be able to really get deep inside the Finsweet team. And this has never been done before. This probably won't happen for another 6 months, 1 year. So this live event, definitely don't miss it. That's all I got to say about that.
And Eric's saying Rymar without a hat. Yeah, I do have my hat here. It's hard. I have like my little Mexico hat, but it's hard with my headphones. Like I couldn't figure out a good way to do my little hat. So my little, my tourist strap hat. So anyway. Okay, so Joe, before we get into the show, wanted to give you a tease. As we do at the beginning of every episode, we give you an update on what's going on with content, Finsweet, and now with products. And so Joe is going to share a little bit of an upcoming release that we want to just kind of showcase with y'all. So whenever you're ready for that, Joe.
Absolutely. So this is the official teaser of the Attributes platform. We have been putting out a lot of products, a lot of tools, a lot of scripts, and a lot of that is to help you be better at your job. And now we have looked at everything that we've built and we said, how do we condense this to one single product? All of our free tools, all of our free resources into one product. And that's what this is. This is attributes. It will let you extend Webflow with attributes. It's a new way to implement Finsweet on your site. We're no longer asking you to write JavaScript for commonly done things with our libraries, and instead we're going to use attributes. So we take all of our solutions, we take a lot more, even more solutions than we have, and put them in the same place. That's attributes. Every single thing in attributes is going to follow this logic. FS functionality element, the element name, FS functionality option that you want. So instead of writing JavaScript, let's take a look at our JavaScript library here. This is our CMS library filter JavaScript code. And a lot of people love doing this. A lot of people say it's very easy to implement. But the reality is this is easier to implement. Look at the transition of code to no code. And that's what we're going for here. We are going to no code our JavaScript code. Let's take a quick jump into the directory. All of these will be launching within the next 2 to 3 months. And in about 2 to 3 weeks, we will be launching our initial 10. So let's look at this. We are converting the entire CMS library. We have filter, we have load more, slider, tabs, cookie consent, copy to clipboard, custom slider dots, infinite slider, disable scrolling, link blocks and editor, mirror click events, mirror input values, collection item counter, custom fav by page, untransform, hide empty CMS list. So this is a combination of everything we've done in the past, all in one platform. And maybe I'm jumping ahead a little too much here, but by implementing these advanced features on your website, you can get closer to those 5-figure websites. I'll show a quick example of what this looks like. This is our disable scrolling documentation page. We'll go and quickly go through these examples. And we have enabling and disabling scrolling. We can disable scrolling. Watch how that scroll bar disappeared and now enabled. Notice how there's no jump, right? Who wants that screen jumping when the scroll bar hides? Toggle scrolling, great. So we are toggling back and forth. Again, no jumping. When visible, I'm going to make this show with Webflow interactions, and as long as this element is on the page visible, I will disable scrolling. And Smart Nav, so I can go and use the native Webflow nav, and by default, it will lock and unlock scrolling based on the amount of milliseconds in your scroll interaction. And it's going to be really easy. I'll show you what it looks like in the extension, but we have a non-extension version. You'll be able to copy any of these examples. You'll be able to copy the script and publish your site. And then you can customize further with documentation. So we have this nice, simple documentation that tells you what the attributes are, what they do, a couple of more advanced features like setting scroll disable based on media query. We can look at these and really understand it. Of course, all of these will come with videos. We will have step-by-steps for you. One more example, untransformed. This one is a bit more advanced, but if you know this problem, you're going to love this. Untransform, why do I want this? I have these elements on the page, they're CMS items, and when I open my modal, this is not fixed. This is supposed to be a fixed modal, and it's not fixed because the parent is transform, right? We need our modals for our elements inside, and we cannot fix this modal. With untransform, we can temporarily set the parent element to untransform so that when I open this modal, it is fixed on the screen. This is, I know, I hate when this happens in a build and you're not able to fix these modals inside CMS items and apply cool interactions. So we're releasing a whole bunch of these. Of course, they are going to integrate with the extension. Check this out. You don't even need the documentation, and we're going to continue building the extension to really allow you to implement any of these direct in Webflow. So if I want to go to copy clipboard, I can add the script to the page, add the script to the site. I can view the examples or just copy the example. If I know I want it, I could go copy it and now paste it into Designer. So we'll have this for every single one of these, and you are able to go and implement these advanced things direct into your site. Really, really excited about this. That's it for the tease. And yeah, we're going to be talking about this next week also on the show, on the Thursday show, on the Tuesday show. We're going to be showing you more advances with this system and go and prepare for launch. And yeah, some of these can really actually help you get to that 5-figure website. That's a really great part about it. When you start implementing these clean filters, these clean slider add-ons, that's going to make your sites look better, more clean, and that can help you get to that next level as a web developer.
Come back to
that's attributes. I'm excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're just joining us here, Joe just did a little sneak peek of the new attributes project.
First, we will be launching this live.
Nice. Okay, great. All right. So for those of you who are just joining, we're jumping into talk all about 5-figure Webflow websites today. So it looks like we're getting a little bit of lag here. So hopefully that'll level out. It looks like it's leveled out. Yeah, we should be good to go. So let's get into this show here today. We've got a full agenda, so we're going to run through all of the different topics that, yeah, everything it takes to talk about and build 5-figure websites. We already did the product updates, and now we're going to jump into this disclaimer here, which is pretty simple, right? 5-figure websites are not that crazy to sell. As you're going to see, there's a process you can go through, but not only that, there's a lot to do with this, right? And so it has a lot to do with your reputation. It has a lot to do with how you position yourself. It has a lot to do with the type of clients you want to work with. And so there's a ton of things that go into selling these bigger websites. And so again, it's going to be hard for us to cover everything in an hour here. We're going to do our best to be as thorough as possible with this stuff, but yeah, and if you have questions or thoughts, let us know in the comments. Joe, did I miss anything on the disclaimer there?
I'll add one more to the disclaimer, and that is, don't compare yourself to others. We're probably going to touch on this throughout the episode, but really, really, really try not to say, this person's doing this, and I'm going to compare myself to this person. That's not a good mentality. That's not going to help you stand out and be different. So disclaimer, you are yourself. Don't look at other people for pricing or quality.
Yeah. And to recap here, let's see, we put a poll and we asked, do you ever sell 5-figure websites? Almost half of you have said never. And so this makes sense if some of you are trying to learn how to sell bigger websites. Another 40% of you said sometime, but it's only 11% that are saying regularly or always. And so our goal is to get the majority of you, next time we do an episode like this, that the majority of you are answering regularly or at least sometimes. Like, let's get the majority into sometimes, a bunch of you into regularly, and then always. You know, how many of you can we get into that always field? You know, because that's the goal. And so let's jump right into this, because it is a broad range, right? A 5-figure website is anything from $10,000 to $99,000. Right? And so that's a lot of ground to cover, okay? And so it could be like a $99,000 website could seem way out of reach if all you're selling is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 websites. And so don't get intimidated, right? This is a big threshold to jump here. And once you make the jump into that $10,000 website, next thing you'll be doing 15. Next thing you'll be doing 20. Next thing you know, you'll be doing 30, 40. And you can do this, right? It's not crazy, right? And so again, don't be discouraged. There's a broad range of things to cover here. And you know, your portfolio, as we talk about a little bit later, has a ton to do with this. So any thoughts on that, Joe, before jumping to the next little bullet?
Yeah, a little bit more in the history. That don't expect to go from 10 to 50 or from 50 to 90. Like Reimar said, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, you need some history with those numbers before you get to that next level. So don't expect yourself to make these big jumps. This is a slow process, but a process that is possible. So how does that happen? Quality. That's really the baseline of how those jumps can happen, your quality. We're going to talk quality in terms of design. We're going to talk quality in terms of scale of build. And quality is really about you. You have to really understand this, that you shouldn't be comparing yourself to somebody else and saying, this person is designing this site. Or what I hate to see, Stripe is designing this site. Apple is designing this site. And you trying to put yourself on that level, a team of Stripe designers and a team of Apple designers. Yeah. You need to understand your quality level. So Reimar, how does somebody look at their design quality level and understand where they are with that, how they can improve?
Yeah, I guess that's one thing that we should also maybe post script to the disclaimer, is that you can't always tell how expensive a website was by looking at it. You know, I've seen very plain Jane websites that I've talked to the designer and they told me how much they charge for it. I'm like, okay, go you. And then I see other sites and I'm like, okay, you got $20,000 for that. You should have charged 50, you know? And so like, this is so subjective. What you're gonna see here is that most of this comes down to how you kind of position yourself and the way you communicate with the clients and the way you interact with the process itself, right? And so from a design standpoint, here's what you're gonna expect every single time from a five-figure website, right? There is gonna be consistent padding, margins, spacing, the typography. You're not gonna have 50 different fonts on a page, right? You're gonna have 3, 4 max fonts, styles on a page. It's gonna be well thought out. The story is not gonna jump around, right? So your content is probably gonna make a little bit more sense from top to bottom on a $10,000 website. I don't know if that means you're working with them on the copy, right? We'll talk a little bit about how to get into these five-figure websites, is kind of separating the services. So design can be one bucket, and then development can be one bucket. Interactions or integrations could be another bucket. And so by kind of stacking these buckets, a lot of early stage Webflow or web developers in general just kind of charge a rate. Oh yeah, for 5,000, I'll do that site, no problem. And then the client expects, oh, that includes the design, that includes the build out, that includes everything. And then they want fancy interactions on top of that. Well, now you're getting a little crazy, okay? And so you have to be the person that's able to say, no, we charge 5 for design, 5 for the build out, and then another couple thousand for interactions. Boom, you got your $12,000 website, okay? And so it really is about structuring that process and making sure that you build value all the way through the sales process. We've talked about the sales process before a number of times, and we've talked about how building that value works to scale your business, to scale your presence. But to the client, the way you do that is by showing them that they're getting a better investment on their money, right? They're getting a better return on their money than the value. So maybe for $10,000, you're going to give them a $20,000 website, and that's how you're going to break into this five-figure field, right? And so there's a lot of things to kind of take into account, especially when you start talking about the quality, design, any of that stuff. It really is just about consistency, right? Maintaining a set level of consistency, setting a high benchmark for that quality, and then always looking to outdo yourself. Thoughts, Joe?
And being able to explain that. Everything that you said, you have to be able to explain why your quality level is good. You're totally right. It's subjective. That you can see a beautiful, beautiful website that was $500, and you can see an ugly website that was $100,000. But it's all about what that client sees it as. How are you selling yourself as a designer? Are you saying, look how clean my paddings and margins are. Look how I'm only using this amount of different font sizes. Look at how these call to actions work on the page. Look at how I'm structuring this website. You need to be able to sell this design quality. It's not about how beautiful it looks. It maybe that helps you in the sale, but it's about how you communicate that to the lead. Yeah. And that we're talking a lot about design quality, but that goes also with scalable build and neat and organized structure. That should be part of your quality level. I'm building you a site that is going to be able to scale. You'll be able to add these pages. You'll be able to add these templates. I have this neat and organized structure so that your CSS is not going to be unmanageable, that you're able to go in and make edits based on this style guide page I made you. This is all quality level.
Yeah.
Very, very, very important.
Well, and it's also, like quality runs throughout. And again, so much of this is just incredibly subjective, right? And so it's hard to sell and tell this stuff. We talk a lot that it's show, not tell. This is a show me, not tell me business, all right? And so the way you get customers excited to pay however much you want to charge them is they look at the other stuff you've done and they say, we want that, and now the price goes out the window, right? We talked before, I don't know if I brought up the graphic or not, but when you sell a product, you don't actually sell the product. Like think about Mario with the fireballs again, right? You don't sell the fireball plant. You sell Mario big with the ability to throw fireballs, okay? And so people that come to you need to see what you do. They need to see the product that you build. They need to see whether that's your personal site, whether it's your work in the community, whatever it is. It has to match with their goals, and then that value has to be quantifiable to like the dollars they're going to pay you, right? And so let's go into the next thing, because this really is all about perception, and it's about your portfolio. It's about, how do people perceive what it is that you're building here? And so talk to me a little bit about that positioning, because I don't know how to say this any other way. A 5-figure website is all about perception, right? Two things. It's about perception and about finding people who can pay that, right? A lot of people want to sell these big websites, but they're selling to small mom and pop shops. A small mom and pop shop, you're just not positioned to sell them the right website. They're not positioned to spend that money. They might not have $10,000 a year for a marketing budget, let alone for a one-time fee to pay you for a website. And so, like, Joe, talk to me a little bit about this positioning, because this is the most important part. This goes down to the portfolio. This goes down to the quality. This goes down to the reputation. Okay, you can't just build one website and sell. Like, we see a lot of people in here. If you look at the poll, 35% of people sometimes sell 5-figure websites. Well, why aren't they all the times, right? Why isn't it when you sell one, they're all from there on out 5-figure websites? It's because of positioning. So Joe, talk a little bit about positioning and how to kind of like, shape yourself here to get this these higher price projects.
Sure. Early in Finsweet, it was very, very important to me that the portfolio showed the sites that I wanted to build. Early on, it was all local business. That was the only type of project that came in. And there were 3-figure websites, not even 4-figure websites, 3-figure websites. And I had a portfolio of these items, and that helped me get to the 4-figure. But then when I was in that 4-figure, I said, well, I shouldn't be showing 3 figures on this on the portfolio. I don't want to have this lawn care company on the portfolio or the snow removal company. They're great sites, they're beautiful. But when someone is looking to spend 10 figures, they don't want a local snow removal company as a site that we are building and producing. So it was my goal to get rid of those sites on the portfolio. Still work with the clients, that they're great clients, great sites. Maybe I shared them personally for certain projects, but I didn't want that to be part of the Finsweet positioning. I always wanted to go to the tech side, to the SaaS side. So I did everything I could to get the SaaS projects and get those on the portfolio immediately. And that is positioning. Yeah. That's just the core and easy way to position yourself in this industry.
And go back through the list of episodes. Go to the growth.finsweet.com page and go through the different episodes. How to generate more high-value leads. How to episode 19, how to build a portfolio that stands out. Like, we've talked about some of this stuff on an ongoing basis about how important it is to kind of set yourself up for this. right? And about having multiple projects that kind of give this aura. The other thing a lot of people do is, you know, they sell themselves as an individual freelancer or as a small shop or a small thing. And that can be good if you are known, again, for being like the all-star web developer, the solo squad, because you don't need to be a big team to be effective in this, right? Like one or two people can build amazing web products, all right? Because we're not building massive apps. And even on the app side, you know, like you don't need that many people to do crazy stuff. But what people like, the reason they like big agencies, the reason they like to see, you know, something that appears bigger than it might be, is because it gives them assurance that there's more business there, that other people are making that same decision, that, you know, like that there's resources available if we get into a bind, right? If we run into something and I don't know how to do that, somebody on our team probably does. And I'm probably stating that throughout the sales process, right? I'm leveraging those things. And so if you're a freelancer, if you're a one-person shop, how can you figure out to position yourself in a more interesting way to make it seem like I'm bigger than I am? I do bigger websites than you think I do, right? And that's how you get to that next tier. And maybe you don't do this yet, but you got to find a way to fake this. You got to find a way to create the aesthetic, the appearance. Look at what the top people are doing. Look at what the top agencies are doing. You know, like I say this as somebody who doesn't have like a website that's been updated since like 2018. So, but I have lots of other web properties that tell that story, right? That do the thing, that share that got Joe's attention, that gets you to the team. And so, you know, like you have to find something to help you elevate those steps, to take those big steps, whether that's a project, whether that's something going viral, whether that's a resource for the community. I don't know what it is. But we talk about standing out on a regular basis, and this is where it comes down to. Because if people are going to part with this kind of money, you know, like you got to know it's delivered. It's got to be consistent every time. There can't be a question as to whether or not I'm going to get what I'm supposed to get from this. Joe, thoughts?
And a great way to do that is to sell that quality level, to understand how to sell that quality level. Something I did early on was I talked about my work with other clients. So if a company came and said, hey, we have a small team that wants to learn Webflow, learn how to be trained on Webflow, I would say, great, I know all about that. I onboarded a 15-person team at HelloSign to use Webflow, and they are now managing it mostly on their own, and they just need me for small things. I work with Intuit, and I did this and this and this. And I to work up to those big names to name drop, but you can still do that with smaller companies. I work with this person, and this person went from this to this. And now after I did the site the second time, they went to this. So tell those stories. That's going to help you sell that quality level. Not just saying your site's going to scale and it's going to be neat. It's, I'm going to help you grow your business through your website. That's how you sell the value and the quality level.
Let's address
and that's something you can do as an individual freelancer.
Yes.
Remember, you don't
100%.
need to be an agency to sell that.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's do a couple questions here. Arianto was asking, where did it go? Does in-person client willing to pay more than remote? Joe? I think not.
No. I think that has absolutely nothing to do with it. And I think even today, in today's world, even less to do with it. I'd say no difference there.
Yeah. This one's just for fun. Hi, Maria. We missed you. Welcome back. So let's see. Takuto is saying it's the classic selling the whole, not the drill. I love that. A lot more simpler than my fireball analogy, unless I have the graphics. So yeah, you're selling the whole, not the drill. Nobody cares how you get there. We're looking just to see, we will have a certain specification for a hole we want to drill. And if you're the only person who can drill that hole, I'm going to hire you, right? But if there's 1 million people who can drill that hole, now I'm going for price. Now I'm going to find the cheapest person who can drill that hole. And so you got to be the person that drills the holes that everybody wants. Okay, Eunice, this is, Eunice is asking, budget has to be tied to the amount of time you're spending on it. I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all.
Disagree.
Yeah. Joe, I'm going to let you take the first swing at that.
Yeah, this is actually something happening to us right now. We're getting companies coming to us working with inexperienced Webflow developers, and they come to us and say, we need to launch this in 2 weeks. We need your help. And they're paying 2x, 3x, 4x because we can guarantee them we are going to hit your deadline. We are going to make sure that everything you need is complete. That's value. That's giving them the value that they need, the assurance that they need to go and say yes. So I don't think it has to do with time. And even if you're finding the right client, that could mean the opposite. People want fast. They want now. If I can build your whole site in 2 weeks, that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to disagree with that.
And the other thing is, like, does that mean then that if I'm slow, you should pay me more? Like, if I take 3 months now, does that mean you got to pay me 30 grand instead of 10? Because if I did it in 1 month, it's only 10 grand? No. So if it doesn't go that way, it doesn't go the other way either, right? And so the price needs to be set on the value to the end client and the amount that you quantify as what it is that you charge to do your work, right? You're an artist. You're a creator. You're a mark maker, right? Your job now is to figure out how to charge as much as possible for the marks you make, right? And that's not something somebody else can set. You have to set that. And the more you can do to kind of consistently deliver value and build that reputation, position yourself as somebody who sells these higher value websites, the more you can do that. And so let's see, Nick Jones is asking here another good question. What do you think about offering current web clients a discount to rebuild their site on Webflow in order to pump your portfolio? Joe?
That is a great question. I love the idea. A lot of clients may not go for it, or at least may not go for it for the cost that you are asking them to pay. This is something that Finsweet did right from the beginning. We built maybe 5 or 6, 7 sites on WordPress, and my Webflow training was rebuilding those sites for free on Webflow. Didn't even ask them about money. But if that's going to help your portfolio, that may actually, you can see that as almost like a marketing budget, right? You don't have to think, I'm rebuilding your site, you have to pay me. You could think of, I'm rebuilding your site to pump up my portfolio, show my true skill, and that's going to lead to bigger business long term. So I say go for it. Any opportunity you have to build a site, build it.
Yep. And there's other things you can do too. If it's, maybe the client doesn't want to go for it, or maybe you don't want to rebuild it because, again, it's not the type of business that will represent the next step you want to reach, right? If this is some small mom and pop shop and you're like, I'm going to rebuild you the most beautiful website ever. Well, it could be a great practice for you, but is it going to effectively help you position yourself to sell higher value websites in the process? What you might instead do is pick a top tier brand, pick a large nonprofit, some other way to use the time you would have spent rebuilding that website to build something else that might give you a better chance at taking that next step. So let's see. Let's keep going with some of these questions. Victor was asking, great tips, Rymar and Joe. Let's see. How many 5-figure websites have you sold, Rymar? I sold a number of them, all right? My average web project size before I joined Finsweet was in that $10,000 range, right? And so sometimes it was a little lower, sometimes it was a lot higher, right? I've sold websites up to $20,000, $30,000. And the relationships I built with web clients over the course of years have generated tens of thousands, 50, 60, 80, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the lifetime of a client. And so, and I know at Finsweet, I don't think we do anything less than 5 figures at this point. Like if you're working with Finsweet, you're probably not entering a tier lower than that. So 100% of the Finsweet sites. Any other answer there for Victor, Joe?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Absolutely. And remember, Finsweet, maybe we are where we are now, but this has been a 6-year process. So if you're in year 2 or year 3, don't be expecting that you're going to be here also. Again, do not relate yourself to Finsweet or to anybody else.
Yeah.
I'd love to bring up one from John Larson.
Yeah.
And it's, what features, functionalities drive up cost to 5-figure the most constantly? John, I'm going to answer this by saying what the lead wants, what the client wants. This is not something like a general answer like filter or CMS templates or this. It's what that client is looking for. So in the sales process, you need to be asking, what do you want? Like, what are you trying to get out of this website? Are you looking to easily edit it yourself? Are you looking to have a landing page builder? Are you looking to have a complex filter system to filter your items? Whatever that lead is saying, that is what drives it up to a 5-figure website. It's not any specific feature. It's hitting that client's expectations and wildest dreams.
Yeah. And it's your reputation, right? The same feature could be implemented by somebody who, maybe do a half-assed job, or maybe doesn't have a rep, or maybe can't find the clients. Lots of people suck at sales, right? Lots of people suck at getting in front of others and building a good lead engine or finding ways to drive sales, right? And so lots of people just aren't very good at that part of it. And so the better, again, you can get at selling yourself and building that value during the sales process, the better you get at presenting those numbers. And it can be intimidating at first, right? Like, it can be intimidating at first. If you're always selling $3,000, $5,000 websites and you go and you're like, $10,000, that may be risky for you because you don't have enough leads and you need to close that deal. And you know that at $3,000 or $5,000, that deal's gonna close. But at $10,000, you might scare them away. And so you're like, I'll pass. I'll try it on the next one. I'll try it on the next one. Okay, this is not a pricing problem. This is a lead problem, right? And so this is going to go into the next section because you really need to make sure you're selling to people that can pay at this rate, right? If you're trying to sell 5-figure websites to 3-figure clients, not going to work. 4-figure clients, not going to work. Maybe you can get somebody, right? But that $10,000, that's a big threshold, right? Under $10,000, one mindset. Over $10,000, damn, I'm putting 5 figures into a website, right? So the client thinks differently too. And so you have to think through that approach, and you have to figure out, like, am I talking to the right people? Because if you don't have enough leads coming in that you can sell 5-figure websites to, you're not going to be able to make this transition, or you're going to be hesitant for the reason I explained earlier, where you're going to be like, I don't want to scare this person off with a high price. And so really, you may need to think about, how do you generate more qualified leads rather than how do I increase my prices? How do I find people who are more willing to pay for a 5-figure website than how do I increase my price to that level? Because you can start associating yourself with brands and ideas and projects that elevate that status. But if you don't have people coming in that understand that expectation, you're still just doing yourself a disservice, and you're never going to make that jump.
Totally. And you can do every single thing correctly. Everything we're talking about, you can just do a wonderful, wonderful job at. But if you're talking to somebody who wants to spend $500, it's going to be a no. So just be super, super aware of this. You may be failing at this, but really failing could just be the lack of those leads. Do we have loading problems?
Everything's been smooth on my end.
Maybe not.
Yeah, just refresh your screen if you're having an issue there. We're not getting any anti-lag stuff, so we should be right. We should be fine. Okay. There may be little glitches here and there, but Jay had a question here that I wanted to answer. He said, I found that with, projects, I can't charge on time rather than with full cost. Opinions. There's a couple different ways to price a website, right? Or price a digital project, or price anything like this. There's time and materials, and there's fixed cost, right? And so time and materials is typically for like maintenance, ongoing stuff, things where you don't have a fixed deliverable. It's maybe more up in the air as to what you're going to build, right? And so a lot of times software is built like this because there's a lot of unknowns, right? With web design, there's not very many unknown unknowns. There's a lot of knowns that you can kind of solve for with the website. And so a lot of times web projects are done on fixed fee basis, right? The best thing you can do is itemize out this process, right? If you come in and you're just like, it's a $10,000 website, the client's going to be like, and why, right? But if you come in and you say, hey, it's $3,500 for design. We have $2,000 in here for the copywriter. We have $1,500 in here for custom illustrations. We've got $4,000 in here for the dev, and we've got $2,000 for interactions. Bam. Now it makes sense. And people are like, oh, that doesn't seem unreasonable. $1,500 for illustrations, $2,000 for this, $3,000 for that. Now it's not a $10,000 product you're selling. That's the total cost, but you're selling smaller steps to get there, and it makes more sense for this customer. And now you can stack up to that larger fixed cost project. And what you need to get good at is just making sure that you can fit the time it's going to take you to do those things inside of that fixed cost structure. And so that's kind of the goal there, Jay, is to figure out it's going to be hard to charge somebody on a time basis. I really think fixed fee is the right way here, and just making sure that keep bumping that game up. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Absolutely.
There,
and yeah, I double agree with that. It's really hard to sell on the time. And Jay, to save yourself from that full site cost, make sure you're clear on the scope. Make sure you have the pages, the listed pages, make sure you have the listed functionality, so if they do take more of your time, then that is grounds for further charges. And just make that clear. Be very transparent about it.
There's so many good questions coming in. I don't think we're good. Let's see. Where was that one from? That's not the one. Where was it? I just saw it and just lost it. Stephen Hilario.
Oh,
asking
how about
for a
from
budget
Stephen?
From the client
perfect.
in the initial meeting. Good practice. Yeah. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say this. I love this method, Stephen. I think a really powerful method, and it saves a lot of time. I found myself early at Finsweet getting to the end of a sales call and then finding out it didn't work. So maybe it was good training just to be on the sales call and talk to people about websites. But now I've just wasted, let's say, an hour of a phone call, 30 minutes of research, and now there's no chance. It's just zero. This person wants to spend $1,000 and my minimum is $3,000, let's say. I love to ask that question right up front and just be honest with it. Hey, I want to make you some packages. I want to figure out where your budget can fit in this practice. What do you want to spend? I'm going to give you a budget at the amount you want to spend. I'm going to give you a budget a little bit lower than that and give you a budget a little bit higher than that. Great pricing method. And it's honest. This is not to try to fool the person and to try to match their budget. It's honest. I want you to pay what you want to pay in a perfect world. Let's hope that goes with my pricing. If not, I'm going to give you an option below and an option above.
This can be a booby trap if you're not confident, right? If you're not well practiced, and if you're just, well, how much would you like to spend on a website? You're never going to get that from a client, and then you're going to scare them out, right? And so there really is an art to asking somebody or getting that budget out of them. So we say this kind of tongue in cheek, but just, and we have other episodes. I just shared 2 links in the chat. One is about how to build a portfolio that stands out, and the other one is how to generate more high quality Webflow leads. And that goes to a question that somebody was asking here. Let's see, who is that? That was asking about what questions to ask. Let's see, what kind of questions right here? Jerry was asking, what kind of questions to ask to qualify leads? We did a whole episode on this. We dug deep into the questions and the different stuff, so we won't get into that right now, but go check out episode 24. I just shared it in the chat. Yeah, lots of value to be had there.
You need to be really confident to go and ask that question, how much you want to spend. And also that portfolio can back up that question, right? That question sounds kind of weird if you have no sites on your portfolio. If you have 50 beautiful sites on your portfolio, it makes a little bit more sense. People come to you needing to work with you. And you can even grow to the point, long-term, think about this, where you will not get on the phone with somebody unless they give you the specs and the price they want to pay. That's what we are doing right now at Finsweet. And it only started happening in the last year. If you don't send us specs, if you don't send us price, we will literally not talk to you. We will just stop the email conversation. And believe me, 2 years ago, 3 years ago from now, I would have thought that was impossible. It sounds ridiculous, but it happens. So you can get there. And it's a process. It's a journey.
It's not ridiculous. It's that walk away power we talk about all the time. If you listen to any of the episodes that we've talked about when it relates to sales, I always talk about having walk away power. It's what I talked about before when you're struggling to ask somebody $10,000 for a website when you're used to selling 3. If you don't have enough leads coming in, you can't do what Joe just said. Sorry, we're not interested, right? Here's the criteria. Like, we set benchmarks that people need to meet to work with us, right? Like, people come to us and they figure out, like, what does it take to work with you, right? How much does it cost? What's the process, et cetera, right? Versus if you don't have the lead flow, then you got to be convincing them, how do I get more money out of you? How do I work with you? You know? And so you want to flip that. You want to figure out how to flip that. And I can't tell you, there's not like an exact way, right? Because it's not going to be the same for you as it was for Finsweet or for me or for anybody else out there selling these bigger websites. It has to be something that you figure out how to do in your own process that allows you to take that next step. Any other questions? There's so many other. Let's see. Ezekiel.
Let's get into some questions for sure.
Yeah, this is a good one too. It can also boost confidence to consider what percentage of their revenue the website takes. For businesses that are pushing high value sales, just a couple more sales per month can be huge. So yes, this gets into conversion rate optimization or the value-based sales system that lots of other gurus talk about in this space, but for sure. This also goes back to the qualified lead. Somebody who's making money from their website understands the value of that website, right? Unless it's just somebody who's got an e-commerce shop because it's a hobby and they want to, whatever, it's a fad. But if you're talking to somebody who has a real operation, a real business coming from their web, right? Whether that's consulting leads, whether that's whatever, right? It doesn't have to be e-commerce, right? It does not have to be e-commerce. It could just be leads coming in off the website. Well, you know, like, that's the only way to take that next step, right? So like, I lost my, oh yeah. So the value of the website means something to these people rather than somebody else, right? For the local business, maybe they never generate leads. Maybe they don't care, right? Maybe the web is still all phone or it's still in person. Those people, you're never going to sell a 5-figure website to, right? You're just not. And so again, the qualified lead and the lead flow means more than anything in this space.
I'd love to add to that. It just made me remember of a great tactic I used all the time. Something I called the rule of one. And it's really useful for businesses that have a very high offering, high service offering, product offering, where if one person buys, they're making a lot of money. And I would say this on the call. Let me tell you about the rule of one. The rule of one says, if one extra person buys your product or service because of this website, you've just paid for the whole website. And that's true for so many businesses. There are so many businesses that have this $50K, $100K, or even more than that price tag for one of their services. So I'm going to get you there because this site's going to be beautiful. It's going to be clean. It's actually going to work on mobile. And when that one person says yes, you just paid for this entire investment. Really valuable. And it works a lot of the time if you say it right.
Yeah. And I agree. I think selling, it's all about selling to the right people. Shay said it earlier. I don't know where that comment went, but it's like trying to sell somebody who wants to pay $500 for a website that costs more than $500. It's not your buyer. It's never going to happen. It's just not going to happen, no matter how good you get at sales, right? Let's see. And Maggie's saying here, it's definitely a process. Can't get to the next step without struggling way through the previous one, which is true. It's hard to skip steps here, right? It's hard to go from I don't have any web projects to selling $50,000 websites. It happens rarely, right? You get some amazingly talented designer. They fall in love with the platform and they go nuts learning everything about it. And maybe they have relationships because they're leaving an agency or whatever, right? In those rare instances, maybe these people come on and they start selling 5-figure websites immediately. Most people are not going to have that process, right? Most people are going to have to step through this, one step at a time, just like Maggie's saying here.
Totally.
Let's see.
Let's bring.
Go
Okay,
ahead. Which
nice.
question?
Yeah, it's very hard to get them to understand the value. That could be if they aren't sure of what they're selling or how much more they can make if they had a better website.
Mm.
Absolutely. Get really deep and personal with that client. What does this website mean to you? How is this website going to change the way you work? Whether it's on the back end of how am I going to create new and fresh content and update my site with current information, or to the end user. How is the end user going to view you? At Finsweet, we like to be very visual, and that brings in visual people. So the sales process for Finsweet was you want to be visual. You're reaching out to us for a reason. So we're going to build you something that's going to make your users say, whoa, that's crazy. I have such a great first impression with this business. And maybe you are visual. Maybe you can say call to action. Maybe you have this really special way to place call to actions on the site to get people to fill out a contact form. How are you going to get that person, the lead, very interested in getting their users or themselves to use this website the right way?
Yeah.
Really powerful.
Great. I wanted to address Yashish's question here because I kind of want to riff a little bit on this. Yashish is saying, convincing clients to spend more than $500 is a huge challenge in my country. Here, clients want cheap websites rather than good quality website. Stop selling to your country. Stop selling locally.
Yep.
Like, step one, trying to sell big websites. Quit trying to sell based on a location, right? You need to find ways to step out into that market, right? Whether that's US market, whether that's like Canada, Australia, Europe, like any developed nation right now where there's big commerce, go sell there, right? Find ways to attract those clients. If you're playing in a market of commodities, which websites at a certain level have become commodities, right? It's something every business has to have. And so in that context, hey, I just got to check this list. Yep, check the box. I got a website, okay? Those people you're never going to talk into, again, selling a 5-figure website. You need to go, and this is the perfect example of finding the qualified leads. If the people that are coming and they just want to spend $500, not a qualified lead. Find a way to get past them. And I get it, right? Not everybody can sell 5-figure websites. Somebody has to sell the $500 website. Let it be somebody else. There's nobody on this stream, right? Because the people on the stream are going to learn how to elevate their status to get to that higher level. So, yeah, just
And
go ahead.
getting back to what we were talking about before, getting your portfolio prepped for this. If your portfolio is filled with sites from your country, you are naturally going to attract people from your country. If you now refresh your site with all websites from a different country, you will naturally go and attract people from a different country. So prep your portfolio for the right people. That we talked about that in the beginning. That applies very, very well here.
Yeah, and Penny said this before. I can't find the comment, but something about hiring a copywriter, right? Good copy can make all the difference on a website. Having that content, if this is something you do, right? Some folks don't. We like to work with fully finished designs from the design team. We're just building out in Webflow now, right? But if you're doing design, if you're doing content, if you're doing strategy, that can be another value add, right? That should be a separate line of business, right? You could sell the content session before you even get into design and or development. Boom, $3,000 for the content, $3,000 for the design, $3,000 for the development, bang, you got $9,000. All right, it's a whole different ball of wax as opposed to just one flat fee. So let's see what.
And that's a positioning strategy. I love that right there. The copywriting side is a positioning. I'm going to come in here and give you great copywriting services, whether it's from me or the person you work with. That's my strategy. You're going to love this strategy. Finsweet didn't do that. We went the visual route. And when people asked about copy, we were like, we don't really care that much about copy. That's your job. Our job is to be visual. So we were going for a different type of client, a different need and a different desire from our clients. So that's how different you can be as a freelancer or an agency. Penny is exactly right. Just a different strategy, different positioning.
Yeah. Let's see. And we need to get Let's jump into the next. We're going to run out of time, I think, before we get to all the stuff we wanted to talk about. But delivering the goods. Let's talk a little bit about this because we've kind of wrapped all this up into the stuff we've talked about. But delivering the goods goes back to the consistency and the quality we talked about, right? At that threshold, when you're asking someone to deliver that much money, then you've got to deliver that much in value, if not more in value. We talked before, in a number of episodes, Joe's strategy is, hey, if somebody's going to hire me for a $10,000 website, I'm not going to build a bare minimum. I'm going to build them a $20,000 website. So now the client feels like they just multiplied their money, right? If somebody's going to charge $20,000 for this website and I get the same quality value from you for 10, no brainer. You just now have to find that person before they pay the other people 20. And then you take the next step up in that portfolio growth. And so delivering the goods, Joe, what's got to be in the tank for a 5-figure website?
Baseline, this seems obvious, but many people don't do it. It's actually delivering on everything you said in the beginning. We see so many projects come our way, and the client says, this person didn't finish the project or they didn't deliver what they said they were going to deliver. When you make those promises in the lead process, in the project process, you have to deliver on every single one of those. That's just a practice of being in this next level of the 5-figure website. And really, I know a lot of you are thinking, of course I'm going to deliver, but it doesn't happen. Yeah. So you need to make sure that you are doing that.
Well, and people all the time, to try to close a client, will say things like, oh yeah, we'll include that, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. And you may just be saying this shit thinking that the client's going to forget down the road. Each one of those things needs to be delivered upon, right? Like every single time. I think, let's see, what episode was it?
Even if they forget.
Yeah, especially if they forget. Because now it's something new. They're like, oh shit, I totally forgot we were going to do that. That's amazing. So glad you thought about it, or whatever. Go back to episode number 5, how to make and keep promises to grow your brand, right? Episode 5 of this, It was one of the first things we wanted to talk about because it is all about setting the expectation and then delivering on that expectation. So Joe, I know you had a few things in that, what's included. Do you want to kind of run through some of that real quick?
Sure. Onboarding. This is such an easy one. This can be part of your persona, part of your positioning, that I'm not only building your website, I'm going to teach you how to use your website. That could be teaching you how to use Editor. That could be teaching you how to edit styles. That could be teaching you how to use Google Optimize. Whatever that person wants to learn, you need to be that educator from the beginning of the process to the middle of the process to the delivery. This is so important. And when you start to do this, not only are you providing a really valuable service, but now this lead thinks of you as educated. If they're teaching me how to use it, they must know how to do it. So onboarding, you have to include this. It's too easy to not. It only takes a few hours of your time. This is not like a multi-week service. A few hours of your time, a few Loom videos, a few silly emails, and you got a big step up.
Right. And I see, where was it in here? Somebody was talking about copywriter and a graphic designer, and Pablo Cortez was saying, don't forget about branding, the most important and potentially the most lucrative option. Sure. But don't get lost thinking that you can't sell a 5-figure website without those things. All right? You can bring a lot of peripheral products in, and this is why agencies are born, right? Because now what you do is you allow yourself to sell more things, and so you could build a lifetime value for a customer. Maybe you just want to build websites, right? But maybe not. Maybe you want to do the branding. Maybe you want to do some conversion rate optimization. You want to do some A/B testing. You want to do some programmatic ad, landing page build out or whatever it is. And so, don't always just think that the first bucket of money is how you get to 10K or higher, right? Maybe you want to get, the first bucket is a consulting thing, and then it's the branding thing, and then it's this other thing. And so there's all sorts of stuff you can set up in your sales process. Don't just think there's one way to skin the cat here. Lots of ways to skin this cat. And none of this really changes when you get to that next tier, right? You just kind of get more complicated builds. You kind of get more, like more requests for integrations, let's say, or external data, or maybe they want a login system. They want to build some kind of intranet or whatever kind of functionality. And so like all that can kind of stack on here. But you just know that there's no real hard, fast set of rules to get to these higher value clients. It's really, again, about your positioning, about the proper lead flow, and then it's about how you walk through that process, right? Those are the most important parts of that. Do we talk a little bit more? Let's see. The higher your prices, the more process matters. Be ready to answer the question, what is your process, right? If you're in this tier, you should have a process, right? You can't just be winging it and expect people to pay you 5 figures for a website. Joe, thoughts on that?
We get that question all the time. What is your process? You have to be able to explain this. It's just so important, and make sure that it's your process, and your process has the client in mind. It's not just what you're doing, it's what you're doing for the client. So you need to think about this. You need to practice this. You're going to sound silly the first time you say it in a sales call. This is an ongoing thing that you have to build. What is my process? How do I explain my process? Because this goes right back to the beginning of the episode. Positioning yourself and being able to sell your quality. That this is what I do, this is my quality, and this is why you should have it. And that's the process.
Yeah. And then real quick, just on managing the client. And we've talked, again, I don't remember what episode we talked about managing client expectations. But it just goes back to the experience and setting the right expectation. If you set the client up for an expectation of a $10,000 project, they'd be surprised if you come at them with anything less, right? You could set the expectation of a $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 project. And then when you come in at 15, they're like, oh, this is a bargain, okay? Lots of people are not making these decisions purely based on price, right? People pay more to work with somebody they trust, to work with somebody they know is going to deliver quality, right? People will overpay for a fast timeline for certain things. And so find the ways to pull and add that value as you go through, and you will find the average cost of your project going up over time. It may not be all of a sudden, right? Like you may not all of a sudden go from $3,000 to $5,000 websites to every website's 10 grand, right? That's not going to happen. But over time, get to that next tier. And then you're like, oh, now I'm more comfortable in this 8 to 10 range. How do I get to the 15 range? Okay, now I'm comfortable in this 10 to 15 range. How do I get to the 20K range? Oh shit, I just broke 20. How do I do that again? What did I do different? Right? How often do you ever go back and break down your process, the conversation? You know, are you thinking about the steps you took and thinking about what you might do different the next time, or what you might do better, or how you might have, presented the project? Like I lost a deal one time because I went at like 12 grand and I knew the client wanted to be right at 10. But I was like, no, my price for this is like 12.5. And, I probably could have been happy doing it at 10 or 10.5 or something like that. And the client would have said yes. And so I knew I totally blundered that. And it was for no reason other than like, I was trying to show that I'm going to get 12.5 for this website. It's silly, right? 10 was plenty. 10.5 would have been plenty. So are you going back and analyzing yourself and understanding where did you make the mistake? Was it something you said? Was it some way you presented the pitch? Is the options, did they make sense? There's a lot of things. Go back and do a retrospective on your process. Write out your process, right? Think about your process. Have you actually worked that out and figured out what your sales funnel looks like? And this doesn't have to be some complicated, multiple touch point landing page, triggers this, automated that, and this. No. Like, people come to my website, they fill out this form, I talk to them. How many emails does it take? Is it 3 emails? Is it 10 emails? What do those emails say? How can I improve some of that, right? Like, what is that process and how can you refine it, right? Going back to last week, as we talked about the management style, always looking to improve your management and leadership style. Same thing with the sales process. If you're not experimenting and trying new things, you're probably going to keep getting the same results you're getting now. And so what can you change to get to that next step?
Do we answer this final question from Penny? I think it's an interesting one.
Yep.
What's the difference between a 10K site and a 50K site? Is it the client or the functionality? More elements and content to build in the dev process? It's a great question. I think there's part of it that is functionality based. And usually this has to do with some important part of their business. Let's say like a car dealership. They need to display cars on the site from an API. This added functionality that's really important to their business that's custom. This can create that higher website price. But usually I actually think this is based on the client, that you can do a 10K and a 50K and it's the same amount of work, same type of project. It's really just what that person wants to pay. And I know that this is a huge range and this is really different, but we're seeing this a lot. It can be the same work. And this goes back to, how do you get the right people in front of you? How do you get those 50Ks to come and ask you to build a site? Yeah. Everything that we just said in this episode. And it's a gradual step to get there.
Well, and also understand that every 5 figures that you add to that number, there's just less potential clients in that range, right? So there's a lot less people paying $100,000 for a website than there are paying $50,000. And there's a lot less people paying 50 than they're paying 10, and there's a lot less people paying 5 than 10, and you know, and downward from there. And so the higher up the tier, the more perfect all of the things we talked about have to be. That perception, maybe now instead of having, you know, 5 or 6 mid-sized companies in your portfolio, you need to have somebody prominent, right? You need that marquee client, right? If you do work with a Nike or a Airbnb or a Dropbox or a HelloSign or whatever these, you know, whatever it is, you need one of those anchors sometimes to break into that next tier. And sometimes you got to get creative with how you land that just to be able to put something like that in your portfolio. But I do think that tier, Penny, going back to that difference, a lot of times it does have to do with the size of the site. You know, what kind of redirects have to be done? Is there any custom coding that has to be done? Is there an integration that needs to take place? Sure, that can all get there. And typically the bigger clients have more of those requests, which means those projects, once you get into that 10, 20K range, do start stacking up quickly, right? Because of the added complexity. So I don't know if we get too in the weeds on some of that, but yeah, going back to it's positioning, you know, lots of positioning.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, I was late for this. It actually was showing a 5-figure website. WKD, there's no real way to tell by looking and pulling up 5-figure websites. We talked about that. Our first approach, Joe was like, let's go back and find a couple sites. This one was 10, this one was 12, this one was 15, and we were just going to show you the sites. And I started looking through them, and I'm like, this is too abstract because it doesn't matter, right? You can't tell how much a website costs by looking at it. I've seen beautiful sites that I look at, and then I find out who did it, and I'm like, oh, they must have paid, you know, 6 figures for that. And then I found other sites that an up-and-coming designer who's trying to make a name for themselves did for 5 or 10 grand. And they look like $50,000 sites or something like this. And so there's no way to just look at a site and know, right? And so we thought that showing a couple websites would just kind of be tooting our own horn and saying, hey, we charge 10 for this one, we charge 15 for that. It was better to walk you through what are the expectations, how do you build your portfolio, how do you get to that space to sell those projects. So did we get that right or wrong? You can let us know in the comments. We're open to that criticism if you think we did it another way. And you can go to the growth website if you'd like. We're actually running pretty low on topic suggestions. So next week as a team, we will be talking about, you know, internally how we can stack some more on here. But if you're in the audience and you'd like us to talk about a specific topic or discuss something interesting in the world of Webflow, the world of web design, no code, etc., suggest it there. We'll take a look and yeah, figure out if we do a whole episode on it. So hopefully we answered some of your questions there, and we'll keep offering value as long as y'all keep showing up. We'll be here. So
Great.
Any way we can change position and Webflow interaction? I'm not sure what. Yeah, Matrix, we're not going to talk about any of that. Just going through spacing and client first, go, any way we can change position. Yeah, we won't talk about any of that on the show. But we will answer one last question from Shane Grady here. Would you say there's a price where it becomes unethical to take on a project yourself? I don't know what that means. Like if somebody's going to pay you too much money?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's what he means.
If you can deliver the work, I don't think so.
Yeah. And that's why I love asking the question beforehand, what do you want to pay? If a client says some crazy number, I'll say, great. I am going to come up with a package that's going to make you happy for that amount. As long as that end person is happy paying for it, you are happy doing the work. I don't think there's anything unethical about that.
Yeah, I agree. And the only place it becomes unethical is if you're lying, if you're not being straightforward, if you're doing something unethical,
malicious,
and or if you can't actually do the work you're claiming to do. So if somebody's going to pay you $50,000 for a site and they expect that to be a web app with login and this, that, the other, and you've never even like done anything like that before, maybe a little unethical because you're, or really ambitious. I don't know, right? Again, it's not unethical until you don't deliver, right? So until you do something, you know, I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. So Jennifer, this is asking, is there an email where we submit the ideas to? I just posted a link. You go to the finsweet.com/growth, and yeah, you can leave the thoughts there. Let's see. Richard is asking if we can explain about the Finsweet pricing page, how much design costs, Webflow building, and how to break it down. I don't know how deep you want to get into that, but maybe talk a little bit about, because it is set up to scrub and qualify leads and also to set the expectation of what the pricing is going to be, right? And so this is a very common thing to do on a web form, is to kind of outline what your target pricing is for you. That's the first way to set an expectation with the customer. If I fill out a form and the first budget tier is $10,000 to $25,000, well, I know I'm probably not in the right place looking for a $5,000 website. And so, Joe, can you talk a little bit about the Finsweet pricing page and how you came about that and why we use that to scrub leads?
Yeah, and we actually took that down recently because it so doesn't apply to what we do anymore. But we kept it up for a long time because it is very useful. We actually do not, or we never did, price projects with that pricing tool. That's purely visual. It's purely to get people excited about working with the brand, and it's to qualify people. We used to get requests for $100 website, $200 website. We put something like that up on the site, and those requests went away instantly. Like literally overnight, people just saw it and they're like, oh, not reaching out to this company. Good. That saves us a lot of time.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really scientific about that one.
And that just goes to setting expectations right from the beginning. You know, literally before they even reach out, we're setting an expectation of you're going to be at least in this tier. Oh, and if you want crazy, oh shit interactions, it's going to be this tier. And like Joe said, we're redoing all that, right? Like, so in the next few months, we're going to release a whole new kind of Finsweet, you know, just process for how we explain what it is that we do. Right. And so all that will evolve, and you'll see how we have taken, you know, and eat our own dog food. So you'll see how we position ourselves and how we take these steps. And if you follow along, you'll see that we're growing and expanding. A lot of times, all we're doing is regurgitating what we do to you all. Right. So it's like, hey, what did we do for the last 3 months? All right, let's create some shows and talk about that and tell people how we did it. Right. So it's this whole build in public, sharing a lot and just answering questions. If there's something that you all ask and we don't know, we're not going to BS, you know, we're going to tell you, hey, we don't know that, and we're going to figure it out. And so that's just our approach. You know, we're 100% candid on some of that. So let's see, Shane Grady had a follow-up here to the pricing that I wanted to talk about. He was saying, I see it more where you get paid $30K plus for a website. Are you paying for a certain security of having multiple people? Sometimes this is just that big agency vibe. You know, people understand, hey, if you have an agency, you've got things to cover. Maybe you've got overhead, you've got payroll, you've got this, that, the other, whatever, right? And so I know that if I need another person, you've probably got them in the stable rather than having to go out and hire a freelancer last minute that you've never worked with. And so, sure, some of that could be baked into that cake. But again, it doesn't have to be. You could sell $30,000 websites working as a solo person all day long. I know people who do it. I know they sell 3, 5, 6 websites a year. They're super happy. They make 100, 200 grand a year, and life is good, right? And so this is an amazing opportunity to build yourself a lifestyle business doing this, and you don't have to do that much. I mean, even if you sell 1 website a month at these rates, 2 websites a month, even if you're under that, even if you're selling $3,000 to $5,000, if you're selling a couple websites a month, you're golden. And if you start getting higher than that, you start getting better than that, now you're talking about real money, you know, like do whatever you want money. So, yeah, anything there. Geez, you're skinning cats and eating dog food. What's going on over there? You need help, Jay. Yeah, that's funny. All right. Anything else? I think that's it. Interesting, you guys. I like the idea of showing where you stand on site costs. Yeah, I think that's it. Yep.
There's just one more I saw from Christopher Loggins. I don't know where it is now, though. It was a nice one, a good closer. Okay, what do you say when you ask, how much do you want to pay, and the client doesn't give a reasonable number? Tell them it's not reasonable. Say, you can probably find someone to do your website at that cost, but that's not how much I work for. My sites will start at this amount, and it goes all the way up to this big amount. Are you interested in that range? If it's a no, it's see you later. If it's a yes, then continue the conversation. Yeah. Be transparent. Don't try to just be transparent with it.
Yeah. And again, you know, like, you got to be selling to the right folks here. You know, you got to have that walkaway power. If you don't have the ability to act indifferent, all right, somebody can smell desperation. A client can smell desperation. Anytime in the sales process, like if you need to make the sale, a client will know that and they will exploit that. The ability to be indifferent, even if you're not, to act as if it doesn't matter whether or not you land the deal, is an amazing power in the sales process. And there's another thing called the takeaway. 2 things, indifference and the takeaway. If you can be indifferent and you can act like things don't matter, people will be like, oh, well, how come this $10,000 doesn't matter to you? Oh, because I have 50 other leads waiting to pay me 20. All right, so now I can be indifferent to your $10,000 project unless I want to take that, right? The other thing is called the takeaway. So if somebody wants a bunch of things on their site, but they want to pay this, you can start taking features away from them. Oh, no problem. I can build you that site. We just have to get this and this out of there. Oh, no, but I really need this and this. Okay, well, for me to build this and this, I need to charge this. And if you don't have the ability to do these things, like this is that, Joe, this is where I think we really need to do, and maybe this is like paid small workshop stuff. We really need to go through the sales process. Like I think if we went hard into the sales, like the core sales process, step aside from the web stuff and just went hard in the paint on sales, that would be super valuable for folks. Because I could go for days on that. Anyway, Rymar, what's the takeaway of this stream? Yeah, that's not a takeaway. It's like the takeaway in this concept is not necessarily like, here's the takeaway. The takeaway here from the stream would be learning how to build and sell $10,000 websites or more. But the takeaway is like taking something away from the offering, right? So if I'm going to take something away, I'd say, you know, we're going to drop the stream now, or we won't be here next week if you don't, you know, if we don't get more than 56 likes. But we'll be here, and that's not what we're going to do. So I'm not sure that's relevant as it relates to the stream, but good question there. Okay, any other thoughts, or is that all? Joe?
I think that's all. I hope that you've learned something here and you can take at least one actionable piece of information here and go implement that. Try it out this week. Try it in your next sales call. And remember, it's not going to be good the first time you do it. We're giving you all this golden information. You're going to fail maybe the first time, second time, maybe the 10th time you do it. But once you start to really get good at it, these things are going to work for you.
Yeah. Yep. And again, the more comfortable you get, start with generating more leads. If you're scared to start raising your price immediately, figure out how to drive more leads, because that will get you more comfortable taking more chances at a higher price point. But you'll hear almost anybody talk about this in the creative space. Just try doubling your prices. And if you're too scared to double your prices, just do time and a half your price, right? So if you're typically charging 3 to 5 for a website, try the next one at 6. Try the next one at 75, right? And just see what happens. And if it works, great. Next time, or work at that rate for a while and then bump it up. But yeah, don't be scared here. You can always generate more leads. The only time you should be worried is if you don't have lead flow. And if that's a story for another day. So anyway, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you all for hanging with us for this episode. We'll be back next week. Remember, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and we've got a special episode next week. So we're going to be all together as a team. Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I'm actually really excited for that. So stay tuned next week. And this Thursday, we have a live build coming up, right, Joe?
Yeah, we do.
Great. So we've been doing these client-first live builds on Thursdays. So join us on Thursday. We'll be doing another client-first. We'll be talking about everything that's happening with that, and we have extension updates, product releases, all sorts of things. So anyway, we will catch y'all later. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been real. Bye.